Alright, so here we go. Today is a day that I've been excited for, basically since we bought the 76. We're back down at our local ARB store, Tauranga Diesel Specialists, and today we're doing the suspension on the 76. Getting your suspension right on your four-wheel drive is probably one of the most important things you can do for you, first of all, for your safety and stability on the road, and also that ride comfort. And it's normally the first thing, or one of the first things I recommend for everyone to do. I've waited quite a long time to do it, mainly for two reasons. First of all, it's already got nitrocharger shocks in it, so the ride comfort was pretty good already. And the second one is I wanted to know how heavy the vehicle was going to be before I set up my spring rates. And getting those spring mates right on your car is really, really important. These are the BP-51's, and it's what we're replacing the nitrochargers with. I wanted these shocks in a vehicle basically since they were brought out a couple of years ago. BP-51's, it's a 51mm bore with an internal bypass. Now, what makes them really unique is that internal bypass has kind of come from off-road racing, and ARB has brought it to the vehicle scene. What that allows you to do is you've got a progressive dampening inside the shocks on each end of the stroke, which means you get a best of both worlds. You get that on-road comfort, but also that progressive dampening when it's really rough and hard going. You've got a remote reservoir canister, so it holds a lot more oil, which keeps the shock a lot cooler and prevents shock fade. You've also got adjustable compression and rebound, so you can really dial in your suspension depending on what terrain you're driving on. And it's going to make the 76 ride like it's on a cloud. So when you're doing suspension in your car, you've also got to upgrade the steering stabilizer. This is a Old Man Emu one. It comes with the Old Man Emu kit that we've got going into the car. Basically, it just steadies up the steering of your vehicle. So if you hit a rock or something like that, it stops that steering wheel from being ripped out of your hand, and it just makes the handling of the vehicle a lot better. It's also lengthened, so it accommodates that extra travel from the suspension lift that we're putting in. So here we go, the front suspension's almost done. The last couple of bolts are going in, and it's time to move into the rear. Now with the rear, with the 70 series, you've still got leaf springs in the rear, so the whole lot's getting replaced. The leaf springs, the U-bolts, the bushes, the greasable shackles, it's all gonna be new. But I really can't wait to see what this thing's gonna be looking like sitting on the ground and what kind of extra ride height we're getting with the factory springs that were in it. Obviously all of those have compressed a bit. So with the new ones, we're gonna have quite more. I think it's gonna be slightly more than 2 inches. Can't wait. So here we go, the old leaf springs, believe it or not. You buy a 70 series Land Cruiser brand new and it still comes with leaf springs in the rear. But that's because they handle weight carrying really well. Most of your wagons will be coil sprung in the rear, but pretty much all of your dual cab utes are still leaf sprung. And it's really important to get your spring rates right when you're setting up your vehicle. Best thing you can do is sit down and work out every bit of equipment that you're putting into your car and how heavy it is, and that'll give you a bit of an idea of your constant load that you want. Pop into your local ARB dealer, and they're the experts on suspension, and they'll help you find out and fine-tune your suspension specifically for your vehicle. I've gone for a 400 kilo constant spring rate, and that should allow my 76 to ride really nicely and still flex okay, but giving me enough support to carry that extra weight that I'm carrying.
Handy little tip for if you're trying to remove leaf springs and trying to line the diff up. You know how it's got the two dowels that sit under the springs that you have to sit the diff on? Take the grease nipple out. It allows the grease to be pushed back out properly, so that way you can pull the diff head backwards and forwards. And then when you're done, just tuck the grease nipple back in, fill it full of grease, and you're all good.
So the leaf springs are all in, and we're torquing up all the U-bolts. Really big thing, especially with leaf spring suspension, is when you do an upgrade and you drive it for a while, all those leaf springs, all the suspension settles. So it pays to go through and torque those all up again quite frequently, up to about 1,000 Ks of driving, just to make sure that everything can settle and you don't lose any leaf springs. Now with the lift kit that we're installing, all of the brake lines and everything has to be extended up, so it comes with all the little brackets. This is the brake proportion valve to space up a little bit. If the car had ABS or ESP, it comes with all the brackets and things like that to space all those cables up to make sure they're not stretching themselves. It's only going up about 50 mil, but it's nice to see that they think all of that. Here we go, last finishing touches going on to the 76, and then we're going to put it down on the ground to see how she sits. We'll take it for a drive just to make sure everything's nice and tight and it's handling well. And then we've got to bring it back up on the hoist and do the caster corrections.
So after you do a 2-inch lift or any inch lift in any vehicle that has a solid front axle, you have to put caster adjustment bushes in. The caster adjustment bushes change the orientation of the diff head. If you don't do that, the drive shaft doesn't line up properly and it puts too much wear on universal joints. So the way we do it here at TDS is we use a laser level. The laser level, after you've done your 2-inch lift, will now tell us the true mark of where the new caster adjustment bushes have to sit. Same before, you can pull these out and you do the measurements between the two and you just orientate the bushes to certain different degrees that the diff head sits at and you're all good to go.
Here we go, it's the big reveal. I can't wait to see it sitting at ride height. Bring the tape measure out in a second and see how much we've actually gained. But I can see already it's going to be a big difference. Can't wait. We measured it when it was sitting at factory ride height, 745. So we measured from the bottom of the rim to the bottom of the guard. Just gives you a bit of a measurement. Best way to do it is measure between the bump stocks, but it's easier just to do it from this way. So here we go. Let's see how we're doing it. We're sitting at 700, 800. We've come up 60 mil. Stoked with that. Definitely looks a lot tougher now. So we're all done, final road test looks like it's complete. It's just coming back now and I can't wait to drive it myself for the first time. When you're setting up suspension, guys, it really pays to go see the experts. So go see your local ARB dealer and they can really help you out fine-tuning that suspension setup that's right for your car, because it really is different for every vehicle. So I'm going to go take this out and dial the suspension in. We'll see you for that. Go, we made it to the beach and it's time to dial in these BP-51's. It's already riding really nicely, but it's time to do our first test run across these whoops and really get the compression and rebind dialed in nicely. We're going to do our first test run and we might back it off a little bit and really get it floating. So we've done our first little test passes, sitting at the ARB presets for the BP-51's. And for my liking on these sand tracks, it's a little bit firm with the whoops being quite close together. So I'm going to back off a little bit on the compression and come up on the rebound, and that'll just allow for a bit of a softer ride, but also for that wheel travel to come out a little bit faster to set itself up for the next bump. Just going to use my C-spanner here to make my adjustments, then take it for another drive and see how the changes feel. Those are the BP-51's. I'm so stoked we got them into the 76. It's that last and final bit of the puzzle. And you can see the changes are absolutely drastic on these sand tracks. The whole car just rides completely different. Anyway, the nice thing about the BP-51's is you can completely tune them for whatever terrain you're driving on. So now we're tuned up the sand tracks, we're going to have a bit more of a play. We'll see you on the next bit of terrain.